Let's do it. Well, welcome everybody to the November 2025 edition of the Nashville Power BI User Group. We are going to have a whole lot of fun today. And here's what our time together is going to look like. We're going to start out with some announcements, talk about at least a couple of events that are still going on here through the end of 2025. We'll pause for a moment and talk about any job opportunities, whether you are looking to fill a role or you are looking for your next role. We'll give you an opportunity to share about that. We're going to take a look at what is new in Power BI, Microsoft Fabric, and in Excel. And then one of my favorite presenters and friend, Michael McKinley, is going to talk to us about supercharging our Power BI development with AI, agents, and MCPs. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun today. But let's not talk more about the day. Let's get right into it. Couple of meetings on the books for us. This will be kind of our last, regular meeting, if you will, of the year. Our December meetup, I'll have a few more details on that in a couple slides, but that will be Tuesday, December 9th, and it is going to be an in-person holiday party right here just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And then we are already thinking into 2026. So join us on Tuesday, January 15th. Jacob is going to join us. He's going to talk about how we can reduce our capacity usage in Fabric, give us some best practices for that. So we're going to kick off the new year, diving right into Fabric and have a whole lot of fun with that meeting as well. Both of those are live on Meetup, so please plan to join us for those. That January meetup, by the way, is scheduled to be a virtual meetup. So feel free to RSVP to those as you see fit. And we are still looking for speakers as well in 2026. We've got plenty of slots that we have to fill. We've got a lot of great ideas for the year, but we also want to hear what's on your mind. What cool stuff have you been doing in Power BI? What cool stuff have you been doing in Fabric? If you've got a topic that you want to talk about, come share with us. We love having speakers of all experience levels, talking about all different topics in this Microsoft BI stack. So if you want to talk about Power Query or DAX or visualization or PySpark that you've been writing in Fabric, other work you've been doing in Fabric notebooks or Data Factory, all that good stuff, we love all of that. So hit us up on our Sessionize page. You can scan the QR code that's on the screen now, or if you look for the Nashville Power BI user group on Sessionize, we've got a call for speakers open from February on through a good chunk of the year for next year. So submit your session, and if you're not quite sure what you want to speak on, feel free to reach out to Michael, to myself, or to Sekou. And we are always glad to kind of help give you some guidance and get you started on your speaking journey. Really, I think for all three of us, kind of our start to even organizing this user group came by sharing with this user group. And so for us, this was some of our earliest speaking experience, and it was really valuable. And we always love serving and helping people to find the same enjoyment and giving back to the community that we found. So always glad to help you with that. All right, I mentioned that I had some more details about our holiday party that is coming up. So this is a joint data meetup for all different data and AI user groups around the Nashville community. So if you are in town, make plans to join us Tuesday, December 9th from 6 to 8 p.m. We're meeting at the VACO office in Brentwood, and we're going to be joined by the data science group, data nerds, data engineering, our user group, the Tableau user group, the AI and ML user group, the artificial intelligencers, the AI tinkerers, the AI engineers, and the data gen initiative. Usually the product group gets in on this too. So we got a wide variety of folks all across the data space Always a whole lot of fun to get everybody together. We're going to have a great time out there. But note, if you do want to attend, it's not enough to RSVP on the meetup page. You need to visit the Luma site. I've got the URL right at the bottom of this slide. You do need to register on that site. There's a central registration point for all user groups. So if you want to attend this holiday party, make sure you visit that Luma page to RSVP. Not going to want to miss this one. Going to be a whole lot of fun and a great way to round out a good year of data in Nashville. Also want to make sure that you know that Fabric Data Days are happening right now. They started on November 4th, and they're going to run all the way through the end of the year, December 31st. So what is Fabric Data Days? It is a combination of live learning sessions and study groups. There are data viz challenges, both for students and for professional data viz folks, Fabric notebook contests. And one of the things that always ends up being the most popular when Fabric and Power BI folks get together, discounted vouchers for Fabric and or Power BI certifications. So if you've been thinking about DP 600 or DP 700 or the PL 300, but maybe the cost has been a bit prohibitive for you, you can find more information about receiving either a discounted or, if there's some left, even some free certification vouchers for one of those certifications. aka.ms/Fabric Data Days is where you will find more information on that. If nothing else, you should definitely go check out these data viz challenges. Some fun topics to explore, and there's new challenges coming out every week. So those are really neat. People are doing some really cool stuff with Viz and Power BI right now. A couple of other meetups going on around Nashville and events that are upcoming. The Nashville Data Nerds Brilliant Women in Data does have another meetup scheduled still for November. That will be Tuesday, the 25th from 6 to 7. That's going to be online. I think they might be doing kind of a Q&A roundtable at that one. So should be a lot of fun. Check that out. Data Nerds always has a lot of great meetups, and this one will certainly be one of those. As far as meetups go, that's really the last one of all of our user groups since we're all combining together for the party. But I do want to make sure that you know that DataTune 2026 is coming up in March here in Nashville at Belmont University. Call for speakers for this just closed, and from what I'm aware, it was quite a response. A lot of sessions were submitted. I can't remember if it was over 400 sessions or 400 speakers. It was a crazy amount of interest in this. What's fun about this?
I think it was over 400 sessions, including the workshops. It's
Gotcha.
Extensive. There's quite a bit.
Good. What's fun about this conference is it's not just the Microsoft stack. So there's going to be everything from SQL Server topics to data science, Python and R stuff, Power BI, Tableau. It's going to be really a conglomeration of everything data. And I have to say the last DataTune 2024 was a fantastic event. So you're not going to want to miss this one. More information, obviously session announcements will be made soon. There'll be a day of workshops, and obviously pricing and tickets and registration and everything will be available fairly soon for this one. So stay tuned at datatunconf.com. And in our space, probably the big boy of all conferences, the FabCon, is also coming up in March 16th through the 20th at the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, Georgia. Prices just went up slightly on that since we started advertising it, but there are still plenty of registrations available to attend the conference or one or both of the workshop days at this. Fantastic conference. It's going to, I very much expect that it's going to grow this year. So if you want to get around a bunch of folks who are cutting edge in Fabric, this is going to be the place to do it. FabricCon.com is where you can get more information on that, but there's more. So a new announcement that has come out since our last meeting is that at the same time, in the same building, it's going to actually be the inaugural SQLCon as well. What's fun about this is one registration, you can mix and match between Fabric and SQL. So this is kind of a new thing, but there should be just a tremendous amount of sessions available. If you're pretty much anywhere in the Microsoft data stack, I'm not sure I could recommend either of these conferences highly enough, especially for those who are in the Nashville area, being such a short trip away from us to get down to Atlanta. SQLCon.us is where you can learn more about the SQL side of the conference, but again, you're definitely going to want to check those out. With that, let's jump over and talk about a couple of things that are new in Power BI. The November update was just released, and a few things that are pretty cool that have come out. The card visual now is generally available. Of course, some of the big things that we're all paying attention to now is the Power BI modeling MCP server that is currently available in preview. If you're doing a lot of work in Tyndall, you'll be interested in this Visual Studio Code extension. That has gone generally available now. Pretty cool stuff going on in that one. Good stuff here, but I think some of the more exciting announcements are part of the Fabric announcements. So a couple things that stuck out to me in this update is that there's a new governance kind of view, if you will, in preview. And I'm interested to try this one out some more because it looks like this view is going to allow us to have access to all of the different monitoring reports that we tend to want to keep an eye on in Fabric, all in one place rather than bouncing around to different areas, different workspaces, or between all of the different elements of Fabric to find your different monitoring reports. You can do it all in one place, and you do get cross filtering and drill through features with those. So looking forward to playing with that one. SQL databases in Fabric are now generally available, as are Cosmos DBs. Another one that was really interesting to me, a release, was this one that I've got highlighted: faster notebook loading with progressive rendering. So at first, that title wasn't particularly interesting, but reading about it, if you tend to run notebooks where you're using the display function in Python, you know that sometimes while you're waiting on that notebook to render whatever you're trying to display, you kind of get stuck. You can't really interact much with the notebook, can't do a whole lot while it's trying to process and display your data. That is now changing. And so instead of having to wait for that display to finish, you can continue running other cells, you can edit cells, exploring your notebook, and progressively then in the background, Fabric's going to continue finishing out all of the workloads that need to happen to display your data, but you can continue working. So I think that's one of those things that it's kind of a little thing, but if you're using that a lot, you're going to be able to continue being more productive while you wait, especially in those cases where it might take a minute. There are some new features available in Fabric as well this month for UDFs. They're calling it the Ignite edition here. So these look to be very fresh announcements. So a couple of those things that are now available in UDFs is that there is Fabric Activator support. So you can actually set up a UDF as an as an action in your activator rule. There's now integration for variable libraries within your UDFs. There's support for Azure Key Vault. And finally, UDFs now support Cosmos DB as well. So the UDFs continue to expand. Really great stuff there. So there's some Fabric AI functions enhancements. Those are now generally available. Again, we've got MCP server support for Fabric data agents and data warehousing in Fabric. I know a lot of people have been waiting for identity columns for quite some time, and those are now available in preview. So all of the folks building true Kimball models and want to have those unique keys automatically generated, this is a great day for you. Also in Data Factory, there's a new feature that's actually, it's in preview, but they're calling it a manual update for the on-premise data gateway. What's pretty neat about this is that you can actually begin very soon. It looks like this will roll out to most users probably next month. You're going to either be able to update your gateway actually from the UI, so you're not going to necessarily have to go behind the scenes, I think, to your server, wherever you've got that gateway installed. Looks like you're going to be able to do that from your browser, or there will be an API script that you can run that will update your gateways and keep those in sync. Yeah, another little thing that if it works like it looks like it's going to work based on their blog, it's going to be another little time saver for those adminning in Fabric and Power BI. In data flows, Fabric AI functions are also now available here within Dataflow Gen 2. So basically, this gives you the opportunity to invoke kind of AI functions or work with LLMs from within Power Query. So that one's going to be really fascinating to play with, see how it performs, see what kind of stuff that we could do with this that maybe we haven't been able to do before in Power Query. Looks like that one's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of mirroring functions that have become generally available here. And coming back to VS Code, for those who are using the Fabric VS Code extension, that is now open source. So all kinds of stuff going on with that one. Couple new updates in Excel. Haven't quite hit the November update, but the October update was released since we have last met. Couple of new things going on there, so always love to make sure you guys are up to date with what's going on in Excel as well.
Well, thank you guys very much for being here, for spending your Thursday midday with us. So my name is Michael McKinley. I am a data analytics professional in Nashville, Tennessee. This is my beautiful wife, Suzanne, and our two dogs, Henley in the middle and Sophie on the right there. They are both white miniature schnauzers. Henley is quite a bit smaller. She's actually fully grown, but she was a runt of her litter. She's very spunky and pugnacious and lots of energy, and has an indomitable spirit despite her size. Sophie is sort of the older, more wizened dog amongst the group. There are, in the course of my life and professional career, there have been three moments when I have been captured by technology. And I remember very early on, literally when I was about 13 years old, my family got a copy of Office 95, and we installed Excel. And I remember my parents had a small business, and I could graph data, how much production that they had for each month for the year to date. And I might have data for each month, January through September, and I could add the October data. And then I had a column graph, and the column for October would just automatically show up when I added the October record. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. Like, hey, Mom, check it out. Look, you got to see this. Oh, yes, sweetie, that's very nice. That's very nice. And but for me, it blew my mind. Again, you got to keep in mind this was 1995, so this was a long time ago, and so I kind of became an Excel guru and spent a lot of time in Excel. Fast forward to 2016, and I was working in consulting. Consulting uses a lot of Excel, and I was between projects, which strangely in consulting is actually not a euphemism for being laid off. Actually, really was between projects. And so I had about a week between when one project ended and another one began. And so I decided to spend that time researching what was new in Excel. And somehow that led me on to Power BI. And there were so many things that you wanted to do in Excel that were just frustratingly difficult and unnecessarily difficult that you could do much more easily and much more powerfully and much more impactfully in Power BI. And so Power BI became sort of my second great fascination in technology. It's been a long, for me, 9-year journey in Power BI, but I've had a lot of fun doing that. And a few years ago, I got into AI. I think it's probably the same way a lot of people did, right? Just messing around with ChatGPT and seeing some of the things that it could do. And I've just been really, really fascinated with how I can streamline my work, do things I was already doing faster, do new things I couldn't do before with AI. It's really opened up a lot of possibilities, which I think probably everybody here knows about. So what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about both the state of AI in Power BI. We're going to talk about things that you maybe have been able to do for a minute, things that you can do right now, things that are really cutting edge that maybe you can kind of do, but maybe are not fully baked because that's sort of, things don't tend to just drop onto into your lap in a fully baked way. They usually take a little bit of time to mature and get some of the kinks worked out. So we're going to talk about a few of those things that are really on the bleeding edge. And then we're going to talk about some things that maybe are even beyond that, are really theoretical right now. So that's what we're going to do if we have time to get to all of that. Like I say, I might not have time to get to everything, so we will get to as much as we can. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want to talk about some of the AI visuals that are in Power BI right now. Now, each of these AI visuals, I think, fits a slightly different purpose and a slightly different user persona. So the first thing I want to talk about actually is the smart narratives visual. Have you ever had an executive who said, I don't want to, they maybe didn't say this, but they didn't want to have to look at the report and understand what the report is trying to tell them. They just want it spelled out for them in words. They want bullet points. And so if you create a PowerPoint and they expect, like a textual summary of what that slide is telling them, it down in the corner somewhere, that's fine. You can have someone do that in a PowerPoint. But we're in the business of real-time data, of business intelligence. It's really hard to do that. And particularly if you want to keep filter context in play, that can be really difficult to do. So Microsoft came out with something called the Smart Narratives visual, and I think it's to fit that person who basically wants to be spoon-fed in that analysis. They want textual, natural language analysis of the data. So let's see that in action. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we are going to create a little space. We're going to add the Smart Narratives visual, and we're going to hook it up to Copilot. You can see that there are some pre-existing prompts. You can also write your own prompt in here. And you can also choose which page or which visual in any given page that you want to include in that analysis, and it'll iterate over those pages and those visuals. You can see here that it's creating a bullet-pointed natural language summary. So internet sales of $16 million in 2013. And I just want to point out that it will take into account filter context. So here I'm going to add filter context of bikes of accessories equals a product category equals accessories. We hit refresh and you can see that in fact it is it is recomputing that natural language summary for internet sales for accessories in 2013 of $648,000. So it will incorporate whatever filter context that you have in place at the moment. A couple of thoughts with this is that it's not going to refresh automatically, just to sort of minimize that compute cost, so there's not constantly having to churn over data unnecessarily. The other thing is you want to be careful how filter context is going to flow across pages. If your filter context is only in one page, but the Smart Narratives visual is iterating over multiple pages, you may not always get the results that you want to get. So just be mindful of that. So if the Smart Narratives visual is for the executive who wants their data to be explained to them, the Q&A visual is for the person who knows what they want to ask, but maybe doesn't know where to find it. So let's take a look at the Q&A visual. This one's been around for quite some time. This is also a natural language visual. And I like to give the Q&A visual a lot of breathing room, so I like to give it a full dedicated page. And so we're going to make it expand the whole page. It does have some preset questions. You can precede that with your own questions. So here you see customer counts by top country. We can also change that to look at, for example, total internet sales by country. And it's going to interpolate what is the best type of visual for that question. And it will determine that a map visual is probably the best kind of visual to display geography. And so it'll give us a map visual. So it'll change the type of visual based on the question at hand. It is by no means perfect. So for example, if I ask it for contribution margin rather than internet sales, it is going to not be able to find that. And you can see that it can ask the report author to explain margin. Now, I think the problem here is that there are two kinds of margins. There's contribution margin dollar, contribution margin percent. So I think that's the confusion that is having. But when you ask the report author to fix it, what that does is it sends a message to the report author, and they can go in and say, oh, contribution margin, oh, what they want dollar, not percent. It's this specific measure over here. Doesn't really help the user in this specific instance, but what it does is it allows it allows the visual to become more effective over time as you ask and answer more and more of these questions. So the Smart Narratives visual is for the person who wants the analysis sort of summarized for them. Q&A visual is for the person who knows what they want to ask but doesn't know where it is. The key influencers visual is for the person who wants to understand their data better but doesn't know what might be of interest to them. So let's take a look at that one. I also like to give this one a lot of room, maybe a half a page or a whole page. So you want to add one measure that you're going to look at, and then several different dimensions by which you want to analyze that particular measure. You can say what is going to make that measure go up or go down. So in our case, we're looking at contribution margin. What can drive the contribution margin up or down? And it will analyze over all those different factors that you give it, and you can see different things that might make the contribution margin go up or go down. And you can see different visuals that are driving into more detail there. There's also a segment analysis. So for example, if you wanted to segment your different customers or different products, for example, you could do that here as well. So this would be for the person who wants to explore their data more, but maybe doesn't know what they should be asking of it. So maybe you're new to a data set, new to a department, for example. I want to talk about anomaly detection for a second. So this is actually, I think anomaly detection has been around since basically the very beginning, but there are some new functionalities in it that I actually didn't realize were there. You can click on, it's only there for certain types of visuals, but you can turn on the anomaly detection. You can set how sensitive you want the anomaly detection. So higher or lower will trigger more or fewer anomalies. And you can click on any one anomaly and it will give you a natural language explanation as well as possible drivers for that anomaly. And so it'll give you some visualizations to go into each of those. So the natural language piece is again using language models to give a natural language explanation for what might possibly be driving those anomalies. So this one is not it's not in a Power BI report. It's actually in the service. But there's another one that I want to speak about very quickly, and that is the Quick Insights visual. This is connected to the semantic model. So if you click on the ellipsis for the semantic model and click on Quick Insights, it is very quick and very easy. You kind of get what you pay for with this one. I've not found a ton of use out of this one, but I just wanted to bring it up because it is very, very easy to do. And it basically analyzes over your data to find some of the drivers, and you can pin these to a dashboard. It kind of looks a lot and feels a lot like a dashboard. I'm not super impressed by this specific one, but I just wanted to call it out as an option. We're going to see some other things that I think will work a little bit better than this, though. One last visual before we move on to Copilot, and that is the AI lens. I could only find one third-party AI forward visual, and this is that visual. It's actually been around for a little while. I haven't seen a ton of new development here. There's a freemium model, so there are some free components. There are some paid components to it as well. In this specific example that's on their website, you can look over a table of data, ask it a natural language question. It will, and in this case, they're asking for an email, and it'll give you that email. It's fine. I think for all of that trouble, I probably could have just copied the data in this table, thrown it into ChatGPT, and asked it for a similar email, and gotten a very similar result. When you're using a tool like this or any third-party AI visual, you definitely want to think about data governance, data residency, data exfiltration requirements that your company has. I think most companies are probably not going to be very keen on you using a third-party visual like this, but I just wanted to call this out. Okay, so let's look at Copilot. So now we're going to see these are some slightly more modern components. Now, before I dive into this, I want to say I intentionally did not incorporate the Copilot components that have come out this week. There's two big conferences this week. So first is Past Summit. And while it's a fantastic conference, Microsoft isn't dropping a lot of new stuff there, but they are dropping a lot of new stuff at Ignite, which happens to be at the exact same time. Curious timing that they would do those simultaneously, but that's another matter. So at Ignite, they timed the November release for Power BI and for Fabric to coincide with the Ignite conference, and so that conference is going on right now, and there could be literally new updates that have dropped within the last few minutes. And in fact, there were new updates that came out on Tuesday. There were new updates that came out yesterday, and so I intentionally chose not to review those updates. So do please keep in mind that there were some Copilot updates, particularly Copilot and mobile, for example, was one of the updates that I found really interesting. I think putting your data in your stakeholders' hands, putting the data in their hands, imagine somebody could wake up and just get their phone out and just start looking at the data. What was my performance like yesterday? What was my performance like last night? I think that is a really powerful tool to be able to manage your assets, manage your book of business really quickly. So I think that is really interesting, but it's just something that I'm not going to cover here. So we are going to cover a few things in Copilot. So let me go over those now. So the first thing we're going to talk about actually is using Copilot to help write DAX queries and DAX measures. We'll see both of those here in a second. So I've got Power BI Desktop open. I've got that same semantic model open here, and we are going to use Copilot to write a DAX query. So you can see you can click on the Copilot button. You can ask it a natural language query. So what were my total internet sales by product category for 2013? And it will very quickly write, obviously this is sped up, but it will quickly write a DAX query. You can keep the query and then run that query, and you get a very quick table of results there. You can also have Copilot edit the query. So for example, I can say, please add to this query a measure that computes internet sales for our top 10 product categories for bikes, for example. So slightly odd thing to add to this table, as you'll see in a moment, but it certainly can do that. Not only does it make that change, but it also will give you a diff between the old DAX query and the new one. You'll see here that we've got a new measure that it has created and has utilized that measure in the actual DAX query. We can keep those changes, run our new query, and you see the output that we have there for our top 10 bike subcategories. This is not Copilot, but you notice there is a button there to update the model. So we've had Copilot write a DAX measure. Now we're adding that DAX measure back to our model. You can see that in the model view in the bottom right there. You can also see it in the data pane here, and you can look at the measure that Copilot has written for us. Also, you can add a description for this measure. You can have Copilot create this description. You can see the existing description if there is one. You can have it regenerated, or you can just accept the description that it has written. I am a big believer in having descriptions across your entire semantic model. So my rule to my teams is every table, every column, every measure. And the reason is that a column that might be self-evident to you might not be self-evident to somebody else. And so my philosophy is don't have judgments on whether a column or a table or a measure is self-evident. Just add descriptions for everything. I wish that you could bulk add measures this way. Unfortunately, you can only edit the measures or create measures one at a time with Copilot using that button, but it is nice that it's there. I'm not going to show it here, but there is a trick that I've used in the past where you can bulk edit those by actually using Temdal and scripting your table or your model out to Temdal, throwing that into an LLM and having it bulk edit descriptions for you. Temdal is so new that the models are typically not very well trained on Temdal, so your results may not be great doing that. But if you work with it enough, you can typically get to something meaningful. It may or may not be faster than just doing it yourself, but it's an option. Okay. All right, so let's check out Copilot in the service. So here we have a report, the same report you saw earlier, and there's a Copilot pane that you can bring up on your right. It's preceded with some questions here, so I'm just saying, give me an executive summary for this report, and it is going to create a bulleted list. This is very similar to the Smart Narratives visual. This is giving me a bulleted list of all the findings that are on this report page. I can ask it for some follow-up questions here, like what was internet sales for red bikes in 2013? And it will, again, determine the best visual. In this case, that would be a card visual. I can say, how did Copilot arrive at this? You can see the measure that was used, total internet sales amount, and the filters that were applied, red bikes 2013. So that all seems very reasonable. You can also kind of play around with this, make some adjustments if you wanted to swap out internet sales for a different measure, change your filter context, et cetera. You can do that very easily here. Okay, you can also use Copilot more generically. So for example, you can click on the ellipsis for your data set and say auto create report. So Copilot here is going to auto create a report for you. Again, I think that this is a great tool for self-service analytics. You can see over here on the right, you can add and remove components, tables, and columns and measures in your model over which it is conducting that analysis. So you can have it focus in on certain things as you want. Once you get it kind of basically locked in, you can save that and you can make edits to this. I asked it to create another new report page, and it just sort of says, yeah, your semantic model is very complex, maybe narrow this down for me. So then I said, well, tell me about what single homeowners are buying. So it just gave me a table with a distinct list of all the things that single homeowners are buying, not quite what I had in mind. So I'm just not giving it a very good prompt. So I said, tell me about what single homeowners are buying in a new report page. And so now it's going to go ahead and spin up a new report page. And so it does create a new report page. It gives it a meaningful name, single homeowners purchasing analysis, and it gives it some nice visuals on here that are probably a reasonable first start. And then I say to myself, well, let's say in the bottom right-hand corner, I want to swap out, in that bottom right table, I want to swap out model name for the age bracket from the customer table. And what you'll see here is that it throws an error. It says, I can't find that age bracket column in the customer table. I don't know what you're talking about. To me, I find it fascinating that I can say, just give me a report page on something, and it does a decent job. It's not great. It's not going to win any design awards, but it took seconds. And to me, I'm still amazed by that every time I see it, because there were, it wasn't that long ago, like that, that this would have taken a day or two or five worth of work to get to something like this, and it can do it in seconds. Now, there's a lot of prep work, having a well architected semantic model and so forth that was done in advance that we're obviously not seeing here. But so it can do really impressive things like that. But then I ask it to make one very simple change, like swap out one column for another that is absolutely in that model and right where I told it it was. And then it falls short. So there are moments when it just blows my mind, and there are moments when it makes me want to pull my hair out. And that's just sort of the state of AI right now. I encourage you to play around with it, but just understand this is maybe not the all-encompassing perfect solution to everything that we might want it to be, or that some people might be claiming it is. Would I put this in front of a CEO? I don't know. Probably not, right? Because if I'm going to build something for a CEO, I want it to be a rather white glove experience. They tend to want to have things to be very catered, very polished, very refined. But I could absolutely open this model to, say, a series of 100 managers and let them play around with it. And if the report is maybe not perfect, could they come in here and manually make that change themselves, even if Copilot can't do it for them? I think that is a more interesting, compelling way of using self-service and then layering AI and Copilot on top of it. Okay, so that's Copilot and the service. So now we're going to get to some things that are a little bit neater. So what I want to show you right now is I want to show you how you can use Visual Studio Code to edit Power BI. Now, Michael knows that I have for some time had this fascination with building Power BI content on my Mac. Now, I do that already through something called Parallels. It's basically a Windows virtualization system. And so I can build Power BI in Windows in Parallels on my Mac. But now we're going to step outside of that. And you can see in the top left-hand corner of this visual, you can see that this is actually Visual Studio Code on a Mac. I've got my AdventureWorks data model. It is saved out to the Power BI report project format. You can see that I've got my report folder, my semantic model folder. I also have a readme.md file. I actually had AI write that readme.md file for me, but that readme file is going to prove instrumental in helping the AI make better sense of the architecture of the model. It's also just good design to add this to your code repositories as well. This actually is in a code repository, and you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner that we are currently connected to the main branch. So my boss has said to the entire company, our CEO has given us a directive that we need to double sales by the end of this year. That is a big, big initiative. So I had a clever way of how we're going to do this. So what we're going to do is we are going to first create a new branch, because we don't do development in our main branch, of course. We're going to give the branch a name. We're going to call it Double Internet Sales. No spaces in our branch names, please. And we are then going to ask our coding agent in agent mode, please examine the structure of the report and the README file. It is a reporting project for AdventureWorks. And I want to double internet sales by adjusting the total internet sales measure and just simply multiplying it by 2. That's my grand strategic solution. We're going to multiply the DAX measure by 2. So please find this DAX measure and make the necessary adjustments. You'll notice my prompt is very, very explicit. And so it's just giving me a little textual preview on what it's going to do. It's creating a to-do list. You'll see that there's a to-do list now in the top of the chat. Locate the DAX measure, update the measure expression, and verify the changes. So it's examining the entire model. It's looking for where that DAX measure is defined. It has found it and made the change. You can see the diff there in line 7, and it's verified the changes. It gives you a text summarization of everything that it has done. So now I'm going to say, please stage, commit, and sync these changes back to our repo. And so it will push these changes back to Azure DevOps. What it's going to do is create a series of bash commands that it won't execute for you. You could have it execute it for you, but I like to execute the bash commands myself. So we're just changing directories into the directory. We're going to create our stage here with our commit statements, and then we are going to then push that back up to our remote repo. So for people who are software developers, I know that this is not that novel. Like, they've been doing this for a year or two now. But for me, this absolutely blows my mind that I can just that like I've used repos before for Power BI projects even, and you gotta go into the ADO and create a new branch and sync it down, and then open Power BI desktop, from the Power BI project, and then make your change and save it back out and sync it back up and do all these things. And this video was sped up about 1.5 or 2x, but just it was literally that simple. You just give it a decent prompt, you tell it what you want it to do, and it goes and does it. And to me, I am amazed that it can do this for me. Imagine now, it was a silly example, I admit, just multiplying the measure by 2. Why would you do that, right? That's kind of dumb. But you can imagine that, imagine you want to bulk edit a number of DAX measures. Maybe you want to bulk edit descriptions, and you tell it, I want to add descriptions for every table, every column, every measure. I don't necessarily have to copy this out into a text editor and then bring it back in. I could come here and have my LLM look through the code base and add descriptions where appropriate. Now, I will say, if you're going to do this, start small. One thing I tried to do was have it create brand new report pages in the report folder, new Tyndall files, and it did not do nearly so well at that as it did editing existing DAX measures. Editing an existing DAX measure is a very, very small request. Updating, even bulk updating descriptions, for example, or bulk updating DAX measures is a relatively small request versus creating entirely new files and objects. And so I've not had a lot of success doing that. Not to say that you won't, but I've struggled with it. I think that it's just as you increase in the level of complexity, it becomes harder and harder for the model to figure out exactly what you're doing and doing it perfectly well. Another complexity, Tyndall is space conscious. So where JSON doesn't care about the spacing, Tyndall does. And so that is the sort of thing that can throw off an LLM. So just be mindful of that. I encourage you to play around with this, but I would also encourage you to keep your expectations realistic and grounded, and start with very small requests, and then you can build up from there. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I want to talk about MCP servers. Now, you probably have heard this term. I'll also say that there are some new things with MCP servers for Power BI that have come out, again, just in the last few days, related to Ignite. And again, I am intentionally not going to refer to those because they're so new. I just haven't had the chance to really incorporate those. If you are interested in MCP servers, I do deeply encourage you to go check those out. Those MCP servers were either written by Microsoft or by a Microsoft engineer. And most people should prefer that over anything that I have built personally. I have built my own MCP server, and I'm going to give you the code for that in a little bit. But just know that there are some really fascinating things with MCP servers that have come out literally within the last 2 days. And you should definitely check out the blog, check out the videos, and what is coming out of Ignite from this week. So, what is an MCP server? So, in short, if let's say you've got some sort of AI model. Now, this could be some sort of agentic workflow model, but let's just keep it simple and say it's an LLM, a large language model. And you might self-host this. It could be using Anthropic's cloud or OpenAI's cloud. And separately, you've also got the Power BI service, which is in Microsoft's cloud. Now, You can imagine that OpenAI can't just, running ChatGPT can't just go knock on Microsoft's door and say, "Hey, please give me Michael's data. Michael wants to know about his data. I'm asking questions on Michael's behalf. Please give me his data." Obviously, that's not going to work. Not without some appropriate interfacing, right? The other thing is, how does it know how to do that? Does it have does it know how to correctly inform and write those API or XMLA calls so that the Power BI service is like, yeah, okay, I know what to do with this request. Let me work on that and get it back to you. So the MCP server is a bridge that sits in between these other two components, your AI model and your Power BI semantic model, or the Power BI service, really. And it connects the two things. So what it's going to do is it essentially instructs the LLM how to create a well-formed model, but it is also um, obfuscating some of that technicality. So it is sort of skill portability and simplified orchestration. And so what it does is you can now use that MCP server to connect Power BI to any of your AI models. So whether they be agentic models or large language models or what have you, you can connect Power BI to any of those sorts of things. You can also have an MCP server that would connect to maybe like a CRM tool, for example. You can imagine scenarios that connects different tools together using MCP servers. So functionally, they are that bridge that will connect two things together. Okay, so first of all, I want to give credit for this diagram to Kurt Buehler. He published this on the SQL BI blog. He's also publishing a lot on the Tabular Editor blog. And just this week, in the last month, Kurt has put out a number of really, really excellent blogs on the Tabular Editor blog. And so I encourage you to go check those out. It's really fascinating stuff. For whatever I have to tell you, Kurt is even more of a leading figure in this space. And so I encourage you to check out Kurt. He's also got his own YouTube channel as well. So just to sort of explain the architecture of an MCP server a little bit. So you've got your local computer, which is this large outer box in the bottom left corner here. And so on your local computer, you've got some sort of MCP hosting app. So this might be, for example, Claude Desktop or Visual Studio Code. You can have other MCP hosting apps. These are going to have MCP clients that are then going to interface with MCP servers. You might run the MCP server locally on your own machine, or you might also self-host an MCP server within your network, your virtual network, or you might use a third-party MCP server that is hosted in the cloud. If your MCP server is on your local device, it could connect to local applications, local file systems. It could review files that you have saved out on your directory. So, for example, you could have it query over documents that you've written, scripts for videos that you've written, for example, code bases that maybe you have saved out, that sort of thing. You can also have it connect to third-party external systems and software, such as Power BI, for example. So that's what I want to do is we're going to create and host an MCP server. We're going to host it locally, and we're going to use it to connect an LLM to the Power BI service. So why might you want to do this? So there are any number of reasons, but I'll give you three reasons that I think are sort of key reasons to do this. So first of all, natural language analytics. So to me, self-service analytics has always been this sort of holy grail I've been in pursuit of for a long time. When it is easier for an executive to interrogate their data themselves than it is to write me an email, that is my goal of self-service analytics. I feel like that's a bit of a lofty goal, but that is sort of my ideal of what self-service analytics should look like. When it's easier for them to get the answers they need than it is to write me an email, then I think that we won at self-service. I'm going to show you an example in a few minutes where I think that we get reasonably close to that goal. We're not all the way there, and this is a relatively positive example, and I'm sort of not showing you the less positive examples, but I think that we're going to see how good it can get. Another thing is automated asset creation and editing. So, for example, you saw how I was able to agentically edit my DAX measure. Very, very basic thing. It's going to get better with time. You'll get more familiar with it as you use it more often. Uh, it is not as good right now at creating wholly new Tendril scripts, but certainly it could. And if you work with it enough and educate the model enough, I think that you could get better at it, that the model would get better at it. And again, over time, it is, I think, going to become better. The other thing is intelligent maintenance. So the models that we have nowadays are what they call multimodal. So they have text recognition. They also have image detection and audio detection. So what that means is that you could have an agent that goes and looks at all of your production reports overnight, for example, or immediately following a data refresh. And it could it could ask itself, does this visual look correct? Does it drop off at the very last day, uh, indicating that maybe you didn't have a full data set load? Does the visual just blow up and have some big error on it? Once it detects that, it could then interrogate that. And I've seen examples even right now of people using AI to go query a broken visual and to figure out what is wrong with it. And so you can do that right now today. You can have AI go query a visual and try to figure out what is wrong with it and recommend solutions. It's not a very far stretch to even have it draft code changes for you, where it could even pull down, create a branch, sync a repo, make a code change, sync, commit, push that back up, and create a pull request for you. And you walk in, and there's a pull request waiting for your authorization. You do a code review, see the history of it, and you just hit approve, and the change goes in. That is, I think, a much cleaner workflow than right now, where somebody sends us an email, "Hey, something's broken," and we're already behind the eight ball. Wouldn't it be a lot better if we could find those ourselves, create solutions for those, and implement those fixes proactively? So some of that is really cutting edge and a bit impractical or a bit hard to do. None of it is so revolutionary as to make it altogether impossible. I think that if you were to start working on this right now, you could create real value, but it would be challenging. There would be a lot of work, I think, to really create something clean and meaningful. So if we want to create an MCP server, how do we set one up? So first of all, there's a number of places where you can sort of enable and disable both the MCP server and functionalities within the MCP server. So the first thing that you have to do is you actually have to register the application in Intra or Active Directory, and you turn on certain capabilities that application has. You probably don't have the ability to do that. You would need to work with an Intra admin to do this for you. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So the first thing you're going to do is go into Intra, and we are going to register a new application. So I'm going to call this application a new MCP server. For the authentication, we're going to use a web redirect, a public client native redirect, and we're going to use the login.microsoftonline.com redirect. And so that is going to use something called on behalf of authentication. So the MCP server can only do what the user of the MCP service, has. We're then going to add certain permissions to the MCP server. And so we're going to search for workspaces here, and we're going to turn on all of these functionalities for workspaces for this application. You can see here there are a ton of different Power BI and Fabric capabilities that are within that space that you could turn on if you wanted to. We're then going to hit grant permissions for this application, and so this app now has the ability to perform these capabilities. So you'll see in a moment that the on behalf of means that it can do the thing, but it can only do the thing for objects that we see and for objects that we have permission to make those edits to. So that'll be more clear in a moment. Okay, so before we get into actually using the MCP server, I do want to take a second just to show you what the MCP server code looks like. And the reason why I want to do this. There are two ways to interface with Power BI. So number one is the Power BI API, and number two is the XML endpoint, and that is specific for semantic models. Doesn't really work for everything in Power BI, and it doesn't really work for non-Power BI fabric things. So I'm largely focusing on the API. The MCP server that I'm going to show you actually has a lot more turned on than just those workspace capabilities that I showed you a moment ago. Mine has a lot of stuff turned on. And so what I did was I went and looked at the Microsoft white paper for the API for Power BI, and I just looked at every single API for Power BI that they enumerated in the white papers. And I built every one of those into my MCP server. So it's a lot. And when I talk about the Power BI API, I sometimes say that the APIs don't repeat, but they have rhythm. And what that means is that the structure of the API request becomes very familiar after you see a few of them. So when I do my API talk, I start with one API call, and we sort of go in depth what that looks like, how you make that call. And then we talk about a second one, and we see that there are some similarities, and we sort of speed up a little bit. We go on to a third one, and we see more similarities, and we speed up a little bit, and we speed up more and more and more as we go throughout that talk. What I want to show you is sort of the shape of the code. So I don't actually want you to pay attention to the code. We're going to move through it, and I've got a QR code for you in a minute where you can download this code. But I just want you to see the shape of the code for this MCP server. So if we open up this MCP server and you look at this section on the right here, there's a lot of boilerplate here for making connections and authorization and how it should do things. And then you start getting into what I call the rhythm of the Power BI API. And so each one of these sections here is a capability that we had to enable in the app registration a moment ago. And so you can see, for example, how these are not all the same. They don't repeat, but there's definitely rhythm throughout, right? And so just to give you an example, if we look here under this dashboards section here, so there's a capability called dashboards get dashboards in group. And so the description here is list dashboards in a workspace. So if you're not aware, when Power BI first came out, every time you created a new workspace, it created a new Active Directory group behind the scenes. And so a group was synonymous with a workspace. So even to this day, they typically use the word group rather than workspace, or even group ID rather than workspace ID. And so in this instance, what you can see the URL here. Now there's a beginning portion of the URL that is the same for every single API call, and that's just api.powerbi.com. And then so the rest of it is /v1.0 /my.org. And in this case, /groups, and then you pass in the group ID and then /dashboards. And when you do this as a get command, what this will do is it will return in JSON a list of all of the dashboards that are in this particular group. You can see here that it is specifying one parameter that you need to pass in, and that is group ID. And so what this is doing is it's telling the LLM, like, hey, you need to pass in a group ID for this API call. There's another one here. So capacities get capacities, right? So list capacities available to the tenant/user. And so you can see the URL here. So no parameters need to be entered for this one. But if you come down to the next one here, so capacities get refreshables for capacity, strange name, but okay. So you can see here that this says /capacity/capacity ID. So it is expecting a single capacity ID, and then /refreshables to list all the refreshables that are within that one capacity ID. Why would you want to do this? You might want to sort of stage the refreshes based on the capacity so that as to not overwhelm a capacity. I might not be the way that I would do things. Seems a little unsophisticated, but I get why it's good to have the option, I suppose, right? And so again, you do have this pass parameter that is informing the AI model that it needs to pass in a capacity ID. So you can imagine a scenario where where the AI would first say, "Oh, let me get a list of all of the capacities," and it would send, the capacity IDs, the name for each capacity, and so on. It would then pick one of those capacities, probably making some judgment on the capacity name, and then it would pass the capacity ID into this functionality here and get a list of all the refreshables. It might then you could then imagine a scenario where it would then iteratively refresh over each one of those refreshables. So each data set or each data flow, for example, or maybe just certain ones that are pertinent to the question at hand. So, for example, so you can imagine, if you got some error message saying that your capacity had been overwhelmed and data sets were refreshing because the capacity had been exceeded, you can imagine a clever AI model might come in here and say, okay, well, I see the problem. It was just simply overcapacity. Let me go and refresh these and do it iteratively one by one. And then it could get the capacity IDs, get the list of refreshables for the capacity, iteratively refresh a single one, and then query the status of that refresh. And then once it's done, move on to the next one and the next one, just as one random example. Okay. So So now what I want to do is I want to show you how we are going to set up the MCP server in Visual Studio Code, right? So you have to host and run this MCP server. I'm going to show you how to run this MCP server locally. And so what we're going to do is we have our MCP code listed on the side there. We're going to create a new directory called .vs code and cd into that directory. We're then going to create a new file called mcp.json and open that code file. We're going to paste in this JSON here, and you'll notice there's a section for servers and a Power BI MCP server. We have started this server, and it is asking for the client ID and the tenant ID. So I've pasted both of those two components in, and over here we are listing our tools. And you see that there are some built-in tools. Here's my MCP server, and these are all of the capabilities that are enumerated in the MCP server that we saw a moment ago. These are also capabilities that need to be turned on in Intro. So if you want to turn them off, there are multiple places where you can turn them off. You only have to turn them off at any one of these places, but you can turn it off in Intro. You just simply disallow that capability, and it's not going to work anymore. You can turn off the entire MCP server here by just unchecking this checkbox at the top. And you could also disable any given functionality here by turning off any one of these checkboxes here. You could also turn off everything and turn on a single function if you wanted to be very specific as well. It's just a question of sort of how risk prone you want to be. I would say if you're going to turn off a capability in Intro, comment out the code in the MCP server here, because otherwise it's going to think that this is going to work, but it just will keep failing and keep trying, keep failing and keep trying, and that's not a fun experience for anybody. And the other thing is that in Visual Studio Code, you cannot do this in Claude Desktop, for example, which you'll see in a moment. But in Visual Studio Code, you enter a / and you can actually specify which of these capabilities that you want to utilize. Okay, so let's take a look at Claude Desktop. Now, one of the things that I said was that you can use it for natural language queries of your semantic models. And I think that that is a really tremendous use case for this. You can also use it to take actions on your data, refresh a data set, investigate a broken visual. You can do all of that in Claude Desktop, for example. But to me, I think the scenario that is really useful, the scenario that I want to show you, let's say that you give this to an executive. You say, Madam Executive, here is a connection to enterprise grade vetted maintained, managed data sets that a team oversees. And here's an AI natural language tool that you can use to interrogate your data sets. So that's what we're going to see here. You do, even after you run the MCP server, and it happens to be running on our local, you do need to configure Claude Desktop to interface with to interface with the server. So in other words, it is going to act as an MCP client, and so you need to just basically point it at that MCP server and say, that you want to be able to use this. I've already done that here, so you're not going to see that video here, but it's going to be, you can Google it. It's very easy to do. And you just, there's a JSON configuration file. You open that up, you pop in some JSON script, and it's pretty easy to do. So once we've already done this, and again, you'll notice this is on a Mac, so fulfilling my dream of being able to use Power BI on a Mac. The Visual Studio Code you saw earlier was on a Mac. And so what we're going to do here is, first of all, we're going to look at the tools you have access to, and you can see that we have access to the same MCP server and the same capabilities, and you can turn them on or off individually. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, just tell me about the workspaces I have access to. It's going to ask this to verify whether or not I am authenticated. I can say allow once or allow always. So I said allow once. And it says, okay, you're not logged in, so we're going to need to log you in. So again, I say allow once, and it's going to create this very long customized URL that I can then click on, and it will open in a browser, and I can authenticate. This is that on behalf of authentication. So now when I ask for workspaces, it's only going to show me my workspaces that I have access to. So again, it's going to check the authentication. We say allow once. Now it says that I am authenticated. And so then it's going to run a DAX query to get a list of all the workspaces. The workspaces are returned in JSON format, and then it just simply enumerates those workspaces in a somewhat more friendly version here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, please access the Shelf Mart workspace and tell me about foot traffic in 2024. Now, I made a bit of a mistake here. So Shelf Mart was a training exercise that I built for other folks. And originally, when I built this, I wanted to examine how weather would impact foot traffic. You'll see here, you'll see the word weather sort of throughout some of this language here. And so what has happened is it has found the word weather in the workspace name, the data set and report name, and it has inferred, oh, there must be weather information, and weather must be impacting foot traffic. He wants to know how weather is impacting foot traffic in 2024. It is a very reasonable summarization. The truth is, I actually took a lot of that out because from a training exercise, it just proved to be too much. But I left it in the name. That was my mistake. And so the AI model has made a very reasonable summarization that any human being might have made. And so what it's doing here, it is looking for evidence of weather data. It is looking for weather data and trying to find insight that it can gain from the weather data and how the weather data impacts foot traffic, and it's not finding it. And it keeps trying and keeps trying and keeps trying. This is the power of using a chain of thought model like Opus 4.1. So Opus 4.1 is a reasoning model, and it will try and try and try again. If it fails, it'll reason over its error and then do something different, and it will incorporate what it learns from that failure to try again and again and again. If you just skim over this analysis that it is given here, it talks about total foot traffic, average per day, how many stores were in the network, quarterly trends, monthly trends, top performing stores. So eventually it sort of figures out, okay, I can't really find the weather traffic that I'm looking for. Maybe my assumption that he meant how does weather affect foot traffic was incorrect, but it has run a lot of meaningful queries and gotten a lot of data back. And so it then summarizes its findings for me in this really well thought out synopsis of all the information that is gained throughout those queries that it has run. And it gives me a conclusion here that is not only interesting and meaningful and concise, but it took me a few seconds to ask it to interact with it. The whole video, if we were to run this at regular speed, took about 6 minutes. And so imagine that an executive has this question and they go and ask a question, and maybe they go leave it to run for a moment and they just put it on YOLO mode. You only live once. And, so you say, yeah, allow always, no, no worries. And they go and answer some emails and they come back and you have this ready for them. I think that is the beauty of what is possible or what will be possible in the future. I think that this is just an extraordinary new frontier that we have available to us. I am just kind of blown away by this. I will say there are a couple of concerns. So number one, data residency and data governance. So is your enterprise going to let you have an LLM hosted by Anthropic interface with your data? They might, probably not. And so if you can get your company to self-host a model, they might be much more attuned to a solution like this. The other thing is I'm actually self-hosting the MCP server on my local. Probably not going to work for most people. So you would not only have to self-host your LLM, but self-host the MCP servers somewhere inside of your virtual machine. The configuration of Claude Code is maybe not straightforward. You could definitely optimize that to make that a bit more seamless for your executives, or just go and do that for them. But that is something that would have to be done on a per person basis. But the other thing is, if you don't self-host, I pay for the $20 a month Anthropic plan, and that one question used up my quota for an entire day. This one question. And the reason is that this chain of thought model is very expensive to run, and it uses up the quotas very, very quickly. And so this can be a very expensive model to operate, to run. And so while the insight, I think, is very meaningful, it's not without its costs and consequences. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. And when I say self-hosting a model might be a really key way to manage cost, to manage data governance, et cetera. So definitely something that would take some engineering and some work, but I think this could be really, really worth it. So let me talk now about the Microsoft MCP server. I should say this is the Microsoft Fabric MCP server. Now, this again is before the announcements of this week. So there are additional details that you should go and look at. So review the blog, review the videos for more information about that. Now, this is the official Microsoft Fabric MCP server, and you can see the capabilities that this server has. So let's just go through them first. So you'll see here at the top of the list, group_list. So you can go and list all the workspaces you have access to. Cool, love that. The next couple here, so code sample search, docs fetch, docs search. So okay, go and search the code base and Microsoft Docs. Love that. That's great. Public APIs, best practices. Okay, cool. Sorry, I think I might have hit the wrong button. So yeah, so we can go get best practices for the APIs. That's great. Love that. List your subscriptions in Azure. Okay, that's cool. That's it. That's the whole MCP server. That's everything that it will do. You'll notice there's not a lot in Power BI there except for this one. Here's the thing. The server that I wrote, that I was just using a moment ago, you could do a lot of things. You can go drop reports and data sets. You could delete entire workspaces. It wouldn't take long for an AI to just iteratively run through and delete every workspace you have access to that you have admin privileges to. That's a problem, right? If you enable that capability, there is risk associated with that. I would understand if you don't want to turn that on. I probably wouldn't turn that on, right? For me, I'm just messing around with it. I can do what I want. But I can understand that, in your enterprise, that is not a risk that you're willing to sustain. I totally get that. Microsoft is being even more conservative here. They're not giving you the ability to do anything other than list the groups that you have, the workspaces you have access to. And they're giving you helpers to write well-formed APIs so that you can then go and run those APIs yourself. That's what this MCP server is doing. It is helping you write API calls that you can run. And so that if you write an API call that deletes every workspace in your tenant, that is on you because you ran that, and not the MCP server or the LLM. So that's what they're doing. My MCP server, a little bit different. It takes a slightly more, let's say, adventurous take on things. So if you want my MCP server, this is the QR code. You can scan this QR code and it will take you to GitHub, and you can go download the code from my MCP server. It is for non-commercial use, and you can download this MCP server and use it. Now, it's sort of like Spider-Man's uncle said to him, with great power comes great responsibility. Like I said, you can completely screw up your entire tenant. So be very, very careful. I don't want to hear anyone come to me and saying, "Hey, Michael, I screwed up my whole tenant. Please help me." Yeah, you could screw up your entire tenant. So be very, very careful with this tool. Also on this tool, on this release, so if you click on, if you go to this QR code, on that release, you will see connected to the release from a couple weeks ago, a different version of this PowerPoint slide deck, and in there are a bunch of other slides that I think are really fascinating that I just don't have time to go into. This is sort of the future of agentic development. It's a bit more platform agnostic, a bit more theoretical, but some interesting stuff in there. So I encourage you guys to go check that out. So that is all that I have time for today. I've got 3 minutes left, and I will try to answer any questions. Yeah.
Michael, I just want to know that, like, from your perspective, what differentiates a good analyst from a great one when working with tools like Fabric or Copilot?
Well, I'm going to say um, empathy in a word. So what I mean by that is you're always working with somebody else, right? So you're always working towards somebody else's goal, and your job is to help them, right? And so what you need to do is put yourself in their shoes, understand the concern that they have, and try to have the empathy for where they are, because they might not have the time to work with the data as well as you do. They might not have the inclination. They might not have the technical ability. They might not have the math or numeracy skills to do what you do. They might be frustrated by some of those things. And so having having the empathy and sort of meeting them where they are and understanding their perspective with compassion, I think can really separate um, a good analyst from a great analyst. The only other thing is a lot of experience. So if I am any good at what I do, is because I've been around the block for a while. I know I've literally been doing this in some form or fashion for 30 years, right? Which I know probably seems a little strange. Certainly seems strange coming out of my mouth, but um, so I've seen a lot of pitfalls. I've seen a lot of the places where things go wrong, a lot of the challenges that problems have, and so I can see junior developers that are just like walking right towards a pitfall, and I can point it out. I can say, "Oh, you're going to have this problem over here," or I can, or I can we were having a problem with Microsoft Purview, and I didn't know it was Microsoft Purview, but just from the sounds of it, I was just like, I bet you that that's a Microsoft Purview problem. And it's only because like I've been around and I've seen enough problems. The thing is, you can't just generate that kind of insight overnight, right? It takes years and years of experience. So, that's not a great answer because it's not anything you can work on right now. But I think that the thing that you can work on right now would be empathy. I think that if you combine that empathy with the experience that you gain over a career, that is the thing that really separates good developers from great ones.
Yep, that really works, and thank you for sharing your insights.
Well,
Definitely.
thank you for being here, Anisha.
Yep, sure.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it.